You've probably had a question that you have thought about throughout your entire life, whether it be like, what, where am I going in life? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? That is a philosophical question, regardless if you're just wanting to know what kind of job you're going to do or whatever. It's still a philosophical question.
I'd say life is a choose your own adventure book. And what philosophy does is it does that thing where you say, you can go to page 20 if this happens, or go to page 80 if this happens. And on page 80, it just says you die. You're playing those games and you just skip that bit and you don't go to page 80, you decide to go to page 20 after all. That's what philosophy can do for you.
One key trait about philosophy is that there's like unresolved arguments all the time that never can come to a consensus or agreement. It's always disagreements constantly, but that's actually part of a trick that's actually really good.
A little bit of philosophy makes you Deepak Chopra. Studying philosophy makes you an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But the question here, Dave, is, what do you mean by a little?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Living with Philosophy. Hi, I'm here. We got a special guest. Opie couldn't make it today. He's busy moving and doing some other IRL stuff. So we got Jordan subbing in because I just happened to catch him at a good time. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Dave's here, Frustrated Atheist here, and Barry is here. How are you guys doing? Did you guys get into any trouble in the last month?
I never get into trouble. I'm a very good citizen.
I'm the exact opposite of Dave. I'm the terrible citizen.
He's absolutely in trouble 24/7, and Barry is just
always
breaking laws everywhere he goes.
I've been already told I'm not allowed to talk about the trouble I got into, so...
Yep, he's not allowed.
I almost got hit by a car at a protest. So that was
Oh
cool.
my god, you what?
Bloody hell.
I'm sorry, please elaborate.
I was volunteering at the protest, and so I was like the person at the back of the crowd, and a car was going to charge the crowd as we were marching down, so I stood in front of them to stop them from doing that.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Bro, what the fuck? Yeah, well,
that's my
this is a show about skepticism, so I don't believe you.
That's not skepticism work. You deny.
Yeah, I need you.
Yeah,
I need you to provide evidence for all that, because that's definitely what skepticism's about.
I neither believe nor disbelieve it.
That's right.
That's one thing
I'm
that
a
kills me.
lack-cariist.
Barry, how very agnostic of you.
That's one thing that absolutely kills me is when people say you don't have evidence, completely denying that eyewitness testimony is evidence.
It may or may not be good or sufficient evidence, but it's evidence.
We should define skepticism, since we're talking about that today. We have one professional in the room. Professional in the room, could you define skepticism for us?
Yeah, so skepticism...
I was going to say, there's a professional here.
Oh my god.
Skepticism.
We're starting early, folks. We're starting early.
Boy.
Straight off the rip. Okay.
Oh boy.
We're just here to correct.
And you know what? I gotta say, I listened to last month's talk, and y'all all can go fuck. Every single one of you.
We were bullied.
Except for Jordan. Jordan wasn't bullying me. He wasn't there.
True. Good time.
He was in the side chat.
Jordan's already taken one for the team in the shape of a car.
Yeah.
Oh my god. All right, define skepticism, you bunch of cats.
Okay, so there's multiple types of skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, philosophical skepticism. Shut up, Barry. Philosophical skepticism is the idea that knowledge is impossible. Skepticism in general is just doubting something until sufficient evidence is provided to convince you.
Do you find that there's I feel like that's where the trouble comes in from, right? Like the sufficient evidence for you is a very, because that's so personalized, and if you're not someone who has done all the stuff we've already told you need to do on this show, like identifying yourself and your personal philosophies and things like that, then what does that doesn't mean anything.
And if this is your very first show...
Yeah, you also need to know what evidence is and all that kind of stuff.
If this is your very first show, well... I guess you're just screwed until you watch the other shows.
Get on it.
Like,
Does
when
anybody-
when I talk to religious people, I say, like, I want to go straight to the rip, because I have an atheist blog and I get these messages, and I ask them the same thing if they want to talk to me about God or whatever. It's okay. If you want me, I get that you believe in a God. But what I need it from you, and I don't say prove a God exists, because I'm not even sure that's possible in theory. So I say, look, tell me why I should believe in a God, right? Tell me why you believe in a God. Give me your single best reason why you believe in a God. And also make sure that it's something that works for people who live outside your mind. And I have to say it like that, because that takes out an awful lot of stuff that just I don't intend engaging with at all. Because they'll say something like, oh, I believe in God because X. And then I'll say, well, that doesn't make any sense. And they say, oh, yeah, but this other thing. So give me your single best reason. One of your best reason. So we don't have to do this chain of bullshit. And also stuff that works outside your mind. So I can't deal with your revelation. I have no way to process that.
Yeah.
So yeah, rules for evidence is important is what I'm trying to say.
But what
the
could qualify as sufficient evidence for one person may be reasonably not sufficient for another person. Like that divine revelation, it's entirely possible they could have access to special knowledge I don't have. Doesn't help me.
Sure. Then
You
what
know.
are you sending me a message for? Fuck off.
Right. Yeah.
Why are you trying to convince me with something that didn't convince you?
Enjoy your
Right.
revelation. Like, good luck to you.
I like
Yeah,
to
one
do
of the
this.
things-
Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
One of the things that I tend to come across a lot, this past month, I've been on TikTok a lot more often. I've been getting in lives over there. And what I've come across a lot of people doing is that they, because one of the panels that I get on, it's all about Socratic questioning and trying to get to why you believe something. And they always there's a lot of people tend to go through the whole entire philosophical route. And it's like, none of that is why you believe something. Like don't give me that bullshit. Give me why you believe it. Like what, like you're using this to defend your belief, but why do you believe it is what I'm trying to ask.
They're two completely different skill sets, and you'll see it all the time online. People think they're the same thing. People on Twitter are very good at defending opinions, but they're not very good at nailing together those opinions in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like a matter of defining your terms and if you want to engage in like an actual conversation or if you're just like, in Twitter beef. I know Dave spends a lot of time talking philosophy and talking religion.
Yeah, but he's making an effort.
Belief
He's
systems. Yeah, on Twitter, but I think you handle it a lot differently than
very
like
trying.
Frustrated does. Yeah. So Dave, do you want to talk about your process a little bit of how you kind of deal with because you're engaging as a skeptic, basically.
Yeah, I kind of cut back on that a lot these days because it's just not good for my mental health. So
No, fair enough.
But no, it's you kind of get to know who's going to actually have an actual decent conversation with you about how they treat you. And my goal isn't to try to change anybody's mind. It's to not even try to get them to change my mind, even just trying to understand what they believe and why they believe it. And you can kind of start from there.
I think Jordan also...
And just remember that not everybody's an idiot. You're probably the dumbest person in the room.
I'd be having a little bit of humility. Well, Jordan, you run a channel that basically is about skepticism. So, like, how do you find that you handle it, and how do you, like, navigate that?
In terms of dealing with other people. And so I think my goal, that kind of like what Dave said, I set as my goal not convincing anybody of anything, because like reasonable skeptical people can disagree on things. My goal is to get people to engage in critical thinking and to examine how they got to where they got, and try to learn better skills for analyzing the evidence, for coming to true beliefs rather than false beliefs, that sort of thing. And then ultimately, if they end up disagreeing with me, fine, but I think that if I try to make it less adversarial and more focusing on why they think what they think, and kind of focusing on the process, if that makes sense.
I have this thing where I like to just hold people to their standards, and the thing that I'm looking for most of the time is, are you being consistent in your system? So it's not what my system is imposing it on you, it's what you're saying your system is and how you're applying that to yourself. Because if you don't apply your own system to yourself, then what are you doing? I don't understand the conversation at that point anymore.
Well, that happens a lot. There's sort of not many people take the time to sort of step back and try to look at their belief system as a cohesive whole, you know? And so what you end up, this happens a lot because I talk to a lot of religious people, so it's not exclusive to them. But in the context of religious people, they'll say, well, I believe in God for all of these reasons, right? And then if you go and knock out any particular one, they'll just divert to the next one. If you knock out that, they'll go back to the first one, you know? And a lot of times even the beliefs don't work together. They sometimes they're even mutually exclusive, but they never really like put them together, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's ping pong.
Yeah.
You're just on two different sides of a coin.
Which, to be fair, it's a lot of work, and it's not worth it to some people, which is fine, you know?
I think that there's a really big difference between, like, healthy skepticism and, like, toxic skepticism. Like, anything else, like, as soon as there's enough people involved and there's enough uneducated people involved in a conversation, it can devolve really easily when something gets kind of, like, poppy and just popular and not...
Like Christmas.
Like, yeah, sure, like Christmas. You can have too much Christmas. Too much Christmas would be a bad thing.
When too many people get involved, the whole thing just goes off the chain.
Any Christmas before Thanksgiving is too much Christmas.
Yeah, any Christmas before fucking Halloween is too much Christmas.
Yeah, what's this Thanksgiving thing you speak of?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Sorry, I live in the cultural center of the world, so you know, don't lie. You know what Thanksgiving is.
You live in Germany?
Oh my god. Did you guys hear about the AFD getting labeled an extremist group?
Finally, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Right? So when it comes to
like that.
right? So when it comes to having these discussions, I think recognizing who's an honest interlocutor and who's not, and who's being like more denialist as opposed to skepticism, because that's kind of what happens, right? Like when you start getting into that toxic side of skepticism, it's more at that point about burden proof shifting and more about just being a dick.
Yeah,
like Jordan has said in the past, a lot of skeptics are just cynics. They're just cynical about everything rather than actually being skeptic.
I think a lot of it is you get people who came from a fundamentalist religious background, and something happened that led them to leave the religion, but they didn't leave the fundamentalism. They just became fundamentalist about something different, you know? And so they'll use the same thought patterns and the same language just in the opposite way, you know?
Yeah.
And call it skepticism.
Well, and then act arrogant about it. Like they know better than everybody else at that point. And that arrogance annoys me. I find arrogance irritating because I'm a cocky bitch. And people confuse arrogance and being a cocky bitch.
I think probably the single biggest misconception I see about skepticism, both from people who are self-identified skeptics and people who see that as a bad thing, is the idea that it is just a nihilism, that you just refuse to believe anything, you know?
Right. It's the I don't have any belief atheists. And it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. You literally, how do you survive? How do you live?
Do you believe that you have no beliefs?
You believe that's
calm
true?
down.
But yeah, it when in reality, like when done properly, like part of skepticism is once you have good evidence, you believe the thing. That's what what else are you supposed to do? I don't understand.
Frustrated, what are you thinking? I'm seeing you being so busy in the side chat.
Oh, I'm being quiet right now because I have a train going by.
Oh, so it's not that you don't have things to say, it's that you're waiting patiently. Like a good boy.
There's little black train.
I think these things also like change depending on where you are in the world. So there's a really big difference between being a skeptic because you're like doing street epistemology, or if you're being a skeptic and you're talking to flat earthers, or if you're being like, are technically flat earthers self-identifying as skeptics?
Are you asking if they call themselves that? Absolutely.
Yeah, if they believe that. Yeah, you think so? Like they think they're just skeptical of the Earth being a globe and they're the ones doing the work and the science to find out if like...
Yeah, but like inside their minds, that's true.
Right. But that's part of the problem. If you're doing the science to find something out, you can't already believe that something is true.
But you have to have some kind of foundational beliefs.
Well, yeah.
I have no beliefs
So
whatsoever.
they just have different ones. The world's flat.
Right.
Well,
this is great. Thanks. See you guys. All work here is done.
Perhaps not a
Look,
great
very-
choice for a foundational belief.
Yeah, I would
Well, that's
call
very-
that feels like more of a foundational conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But then a lot of our foundational beliefs are in fact foundational conclusions. Whether we like, yeah, our ones are like that too. If you don't examine them, it can be like that.
Right.
Like I have a
I have no
foundational
beliefs
conclusion in a
whatsoever,
number of
Barry.
areas. Like I know,
Mm.
like I just assume China exists. Never been there, seen some Chinese people, or so they claim. So
But
that's a
Look,
foundational
the only
conclusion.
thing we can all agree is that Australia doesn't exist.
I feel like. Oh, by the way,
That's
congratulations, Australia, on your elections. Just by the
I
way,
hope Australia doesn't exist. My cousins are out there.
I would. But here's the thing, right? I don't
They're
think
paid
that
actors.
China existing is a foundational belief. A foundational
Right.
belief would be like I exist and other places exist. That's foundational,
Yeah, but you flat Earth people believe that of the Earth,
right? Except they don't believe Australia exists.
or if it does, it's flat.
Right. That's a conclusion.
Yeah.
I guess.
Look, I need y'all to get on board with my hollow banana-shaped flat Earth, okay?
How can it be banana shaped and flat?
Because reasons and
Typical banana tourist denier.
Is it like
Here we
is it
go.
like if you slice the banana and laid the peel flat? That's the shape.
Big pharma bullshit. More than that. You probably believe in vaccines as well, do you?
It's flat but also hollow.
I bet y'all do.
Oh.
Yes.
I saw a documentary about flat earthers once on Netflix, and it was very interesting. All of them seem to be kind of lonely, and what they have found is
Behind the curve.
a bunch of people who want to be their friends,
Yeah.
and also like everything they say is being validated by this new group of people who are the only people who are nice to them. Like it doesn't take a genius to figure out what happened here. Like none of them are assholes. They're just like
Except they are assholes.
Well,
no, these
they're-
guys weren't.
some of them can be for sure, but like
Yeah.
that's a great point about like Mark Sargent, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like that guy is a rock star in flat Earth, and if he ever left,
Yeah.
he would go be an anonymous loser, and no one would ever care he existed. So
Yeah.
like aside from any intellectual concerns, there is an extremely strong emotional push for him to
Yeah.
not examine his beliefs. Because it would make his life materially worse.
Why would you?
Yeah.
I mean,
And you can also you can see sometimes. Go.
Oh, I was just gonna say we can look at what's happening to people like Jeranism.
Yep.
Like whenever they went down to Antarctica to look at the 24-hour sun, like him and Whitsitt have both been lambasted from the flat Earth community.
Well, and it's
Because
not the
they-
first time that's happened
Go ahead.
either. Go ahead.
No. Oh, I was just gonna conclude with the fact that they're being lambasted because they actually want these are people who they only took their perception and said it has to be flat, but they're honestly seeking to basically debunk what they actually believe. And so they went there because they thought that they weren't going to see it, but they're like, in case it is, let's go ahead and check it out. And so they checked it out and they're like, oh wow, we were wrong. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now,
And I mean,
now Whitsitt, of course, is now trying to find a way for that to work on a flat Earth, but
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what they did in the documentary as well. They did this experiment where they put like two poles 300 yards apart, and they said they should be the same height, and one was like a micro whatever. You saw that too, Jordan, did you? That thing
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Yeah, they said they found that one was obviously it's due to the curved Earth. And they just looked at it and they said, well, this experiment failed, and they were honest about it. Like they said, well, this didn't work, but they like what Frustrated Atheist just said. They'll just try to find a new way to work that in. And it's like this when you talk to anybody who's bought into a thing. Like I get a lot of that from Muslims I talk to. I'll say, well, if this is true, then how come this and this? Or if this is in the Quran, right, and it's obviously, let's just say, not reflective of what we would all recognize as reality, right? Let's just
Yeah.
put it there. So, and they'll say, well, how come that? And they'll say, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. Something that'll mean that it's actually okay, And I'm like, all right, okay, I see how it's happening here. You're starting off with your conclusion.
I think that it's one of those things where like I can understand like getting into that conspiratorial mindset, being lonely, wanting to get
Yeah.
part of an in-group. But like there are real conspiracies though that exist in the
Yeah.
world that you could
Well, it's worse than that. It's that
Engage
I've
in?
never seen a conspiracy theory that was worse than what let's say the CIA have openly admitted.
right. I guess that's just not as fun.
Like faking the moon landings. Okay, I get that's a conspiracy, but there's a lot worse things out there that they've readily admitted than
Well, and then
faking the moon landing.
And then you get a conspiratorial mindset that will turn around and be like, the government's trying to poison us. Okay, well, here's COVID. The government's trying to poison us with a vaccine, and not the actual COVID that's happening. It's bizarre to me. I don't things like that I don't
I think
understand.
for a lot of them, it's holding esoteric knowledge. They hold knowledge that nobody else has
Special.
access to. Yeah.
Yeah, they're special. Do you
That's attractive, man. Look at that.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if you want to be healthy in like sort of who you are as a person and your ideas and the way that you sort of engage with the world around you, that you need a dose of skepticism on yourself. And you need to just kind of like regularly check in on what it is you're believing or why, or if
Yeah.
you're engaging in a new conversation, you need to be like, wait a minute, these
Well-
are my assumptions going into this. Do I
very
actually
early,
know as much as I think I do?
A very early concept of philosophy, which I think carried through in general, is that it's a social thing. You can't do it on your own. And Socrates was very much about that, which is why he never wrote anything down. He wanted to talk to everybody about everything in for that very reason. Because you can come up with the best ideas in the world in the nighttime, and as soon as they're exposed to the light of day the following morning by your friends, I guess this is like what it's like for people who smoke weed and come up with world-bashing solutions in the midnight time. And in the morning, they're like, oh, okay, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So,
This was
You
brilliant
gotta
when I was
talk to
high
people
as
about
fuck.
Yeah.
it's like if
I
you're an
think-
artist and you're painting pictures, painting pictures isn't enough. You're not an artist
Oh.
until you show someone one of your paintings.
There is a really big, as somebody who does art, there's a really big difference between getting high doing art sober, and being drunk off your ass and trying to draw something.
Yeah, but the point is you got to show somebody at some point what you're drawing, or it doesn't count.
Yeah, viewing art or like listening to music is like a big portion of the experience. The interpretation part
Yeah.
of whoever's consuming
You got to
the
get
media.
somebody. Yeah, you got somebody to talk to you about it. You have to say, "So that's a great painting. That's it, done. Now, well done, you're an artist."
Right.
But on the being skeptical of yourself thing, I think the mindset to have is like all beliefs are lightly held to an extent and open to future revision. I grew up as a young Earth creationist, and learning that that was in fact extremely wrong was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because if I could be wrong about something I was so confident about, like I would have staked my life on being correct on this, and I was wrong. Like if I could be wrong about that,
Yeah.
I could be wrong about just about anything.
I
You
like
know?
how
Sure, yeah,
freeing it is
yeah,
when
yeah.
you just let yourself and say it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to change your mind, and it is okay to do something incorrectly and then revise it. Don't just
Finding
keep
out
doing it
Jordan.
wrong over and over again.
Finding out
Jordan,
you're wrong is excellent. You just change your mind like magic, and boom, you're not wrong anymore.
Wow.
Oh, you
Jordan,
could still be
I've got a
wrong.
question.
Yeah.
I got a question. So that feeling whenever you were a young Earth creationist and you finally found out that you were wrong about it, like, can you walk me through that? Like, how did that actually like was there that first level of like, holy shit, like type of moment, or was it just oh, okay, I'm wrong, and then you just
Well,
corrected yourself?
so there was at first when I first started being exposed to it. Basically, a coworker gave me a book, The Language of God by Francis Collins, and that was like very eye opening. And I was very conflicted as I was like starting to investigate these questions. I wasn't armed with questions before then, so now I had better questions to go find new things. And I wasn't convinced I was wrong yet, but there were cracks starting to form. And that was a
Right.
very discomforting place to be, because it was a foundational part of my identity that was under risk. And so I kind of had a moment where I decided I had asked myself, what's more important? Is this identity more important to me, or is knowing the truth more important to me? And I decided that I wanted to know the truth. That was the most important thing. And so I was just going to do that. And then from that moment on, it was very calm and relaxed. And I was just learning new things until the point where, like, the day I realized I was an atheist, it was just kind of like I was just driving in the car and I was like, huh, I don't think God exists. Cool. Guess I'm an atheist. Like,
It's super
it was just
chill,
like,
yeah.
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 Though, fun fact, that is a false memory. The
Mhm.
memory I have, I know for a fact it's false, because the picture I have in my mind is for me driving home from work like 100 yards that way. But I was an atheist in the house before this one. So I
Oh.
definitely did not have that experience where I think I had it. But I can picture it right now. I can picture the exact scene, and I know for a
Yeah.
fact that is false.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It kind of reminds me of like Apologia whenever he talked about when he finally left being a Mennonite, and he said that he had watched the Kinham Bill Nye debate, and the entire debate he was on Kinham's side, and then it didn't get into the question and answering whenever they were both asked, what if anything would change your mind, like about your position. And Bill Nye was like, well, evidence, of course. If I found evidence that my entire worldview and my entire position was incorrect, I would do everything I could to make sure that this new one is correct, and then I would change. And then when they asked Ken Ham, he said, oh, nothing would change my mind. And that's what caused Paul to just snap and be like, I need to take hard looks at what I believe now.
And I think that like debates and discussions are like you can kind of take or leave them. Like I think that there's still a place for like real debates, but we really just do not see them anymore. And I'm wondering if part of that is why you're seeing like so much division politically in a lot of ways, because the debate space was just taken over by dumpster fire shouting matches on top of just dishonest, uninterested in any moving forward, just stonewalling basically.
I think what a lot of people think they're doing is that they're being like Hitchens, is they think that they are being this great wise debater who or rhetoricist who can sit there and say something off the top of his head and get the crowd laughing or get the crowd like thinking or whatever. But they're not. They're just they have the loudness, but they don't have the skill. And so
And they're not
that's
drunk
when or they're not drunk enough. Yeah. And so they just keep going, and it gets to the point where it's like you said, it's a screaming match. That's all it became.
Also, you got people like William Lane Craig who go around the world doing debates with the same 7-point argument that was literally torn apart in the 14th century.
Well, even like if you go back to like pre 2016 Donald Trump era, right? You have debates between people like Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly doing a debate where both of them are like earnestly engaging with each other. Like even if like they both clearly respect each other to some degree, that they are able to sit down and have that, even if they're like slinging shit at each other, but that's part of like the entertainment value as opposed to like just people hating each other and shit. And like
during that debate, Jon Stewart even had this whole entire gag where he like gets like way up high just to be up above him. And he's like, he's like, oh, look at me.
He's got a lift. But you just don't see that anymore, even on the internet. Sorry, go ahead.
I think talking about William Lane Craig, he's been saying the same talking points since the dawn of time, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's what he would say.
Yeah. And I think that kind of as a heuristic, if you're doing good skepticism and you hold the exact same beliefs now and 20 years from now, you probably aren't doing good skepticism. Like you probably haven't learned very much along the way, No,
he just discovered the truth early.
Right. So like kind of when I'm looking at any kind of claim, the prior probability is important to keep in mind, right? And so what's more probable? Is it more probable that you are just perfect and have no flaws and don't have no incorrect opinions? Or is it more probable that you're just not doing a good job examining yourself?
Occam's
They're not my
razor.
opinions. These are God's opinions that I just agree with.
I have all the correct opinions. Like I don't know what you're talking about, George. And if you ever find a wrong opinion, I've changed it already to the correct one.
So let's talk for a second about toxic skepticism, because we've been talking about sort of how to handle it in a reasonable way and sort of some of the pitfalls and things to look out for. But what do you think makes a toxic skeptic toxic?
I would say the ones who they take all like it doesn't matter what the believer claims. Like it doesn't matter. They're always constantly. Well, I need to see a source for that, and the claim itself would be something as mundane as like, hey, today is Tuesday. Like it's something that like even if what they
it's like
said,
extremism.
like because they don't listen to what's being said. Like the believer could sit there and say, well, believers of this time believe this, and then it'd be something that everyone knows that that's what believers of the time believe, and they'd still be like, I need to see a source. What's your source? Where did that come from? And it's like, what? Like this is a normal everyday like stop that. Like just stop it.
Yeah, that's like sea lining then.
Yeah. It's not taking. I think some traits that they share is they don't value prior beliefs or like sort of background knowledge that has no value to them, unless it's their background knowledge, then it's fine. But other, like, if I tell somebody, oh, I had lunch in Orlando last week, and they start pounding me for evidence, like, people go to Orlando, people have lunch, this is not a crazy claim,
Yeah.
this is a mundane claim.
Yeah.
So
and
you
it's
could
always
reasonably
aggravating.
you could reasonably believe that someone did in fact go to Orlando and had lunch just by virtue of them saying it, because it's just not a very unlikely thing to happen, as opposed to if I said, oh, I went to Orlando and had lunch with the Pope. Well, now you might be more justified in asking for evidence if you don't know me, perhaps.
Wait a
Jordan,
second.
I need to make sure that you have evidence that you're. Oh, go ahead, Barry.
When you just had lunch in Orlando, people were pounding you for evidence. But when you had lunch with the Pope, now they're just asking. What's that about?
Yeah, Jordan. What is that about?
Well, I don't know. I guess the Pope's dead. Maybe
I
that
don't
factors into
know.
it.
I think, I'm starting to question if you're even on the deck of the Enterprise right now, Jordan.
Well, this is not the deck of the Enterprise. This is the deck of the Kongzi. So.
Oh.
Yeah,
well,
that's
I'm
my
starting to
ship. You
doubt
better
that.
represent. I'll fight you. That's mine.
I'm starting to doubt that you're there.
But like, some traits that I see in
Honestly.
toxic skepticism is like not appreciating the role of background knowledge, demanding evidence, but then refusing to actually scrutinize that evidence, and being unwilling. I think the most fundamental thing is being unwilling to change their mind or admit they're wrong, which is like, if you can't change your mind, then you're not doing skepticism. That's like,
Yeah, but that's extremely difficult, Jordan. We can't deny how extraordinarily difficult that is for no matter what level you're at to say, yes, I am wrong about that. It is quite difficult, particularly if you're talking to someone you're married to, okay?
I recognize that is something that people find difficult.
Oh, you're better than that, aren't you? You're above that, aren't you? You don't like the rest of us.
Well,
schlubs.
considering that Jordan doesn't have your track record of divorce, probably.
I've been divorced
Well,
once.
I think I beat him. I think I beat both.
I've been divorced twice.
Same.
3. Anyone got 3? Anyone? Going? And
Watch
done.
Dave come
Yes,
up.
I'm
I've been
just
divorced
with women.
17.
Oh my god, can I point
One
out
of the biggest
really
disasters.
quick?
Where-
We've been
You
married.
and I,
Yeah, there you go.
you
he
and
Dave's
I
the
are
winner.
tied, Barry.
On the
You
plus
have
side,
2
at least
divorces behind you.
none of us are going the route of, I'm a divorced man now.
Yeah, therefore women are bad and evil.
That's like a whole genre of man. Like, what the fuck? I don't know.
I mean,
At least I didn't do that thing when I got divorced the second time. I didn't do that middle-aged guy thing where I just went for a girl who was way too young for me, despite what her sister told me to. Wouldn't be that
That's-
fucking stereotypical, would I?
fine. That's why
I'll
you
be
would.
wrong.
You wouldn't.
No.
but I
yeah,
think
go ahead.
what Barry said is kind of ties in what we were saying before about flat earthers, and like, if admitting you're wrong about something, how difficult that is can change based on how foundational that belief is. Like, if I had to admit I was wrong about
Yeah.
if I had to admit I was wrong about something mundane or some like thing at work or whatever, that's not a big deal to me. But if it is something that's going to like fundamentally alter my life,
And this is absolutely something we've talked about on this channel when we talked about wrapping your identity into your belief. When you are a Christian and that's what you believe you are, when you are a Republican and that's how you identify yourself, when you identify yourself as a flat earther, why are you tying yourself to that belief instead of just being yourself? And part of it is probably what Dave was saying and Barry was saying. They look so lonely.
well, I think if you're more careful about the things you take in as your fundamental identity, for example, I'm an atheist. but I'm a skeptic
Oh, here we
for
go.
that.
Mhm.
And so, like, if I found out tomorrow that God existed, then I would stop being an atheist, but I'd still be a skeptic, you know?
Sure.
And so, like,
It wouldn't break your whole life.
right, you know,
Mhm.
It
I'd
would
get less
shatter
sleep on
mine.
Sundays probably, but, you know.
Maybe.
It would shatter mine. I would just be like, I'm gonna stop being everything. I'm just be like, nope.
Yeah, but you literally
I'm
go
not an
by
atheist. I'm not a
frustrated
skeptic.
atheist. It's like
Yeah,
that's your
my life
Well,
is
identity.
you would
shattered.
just have to change one letter. Just drop the A, boom, you're done.
Oh, hey, easy.
Look, Jordan, I'm not looking for help here. I'm just looking for you to just be like, shut up, Russ. That's it.
That's what this show's about. How long before we all
Don't
yell
do
at
it,
Russ
it's what
to
he
shut the
wants.
fuck up?
Don't do it. It's what he wants. There's some kind of there's a lack somewhere. It's what he needs, I think, to survive.
Do you
Barry?
guys think? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's just I didn't have anything. So I was glad you interrupted
Barry.
me.
Just Barry in an
Just fuck
adult
you,
tone.
Barry.
Look. Sometimes the quips come, sometimes they don't. All right, let's just drop it. All
That's
right.
fair. Yeah.
Called out. What do you guys think of social media when it comes to skepticism and the health of skepticism?
It's bad for it.
You think
Yeah.
so?
Because it creates dogfighting in group. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
It's bad,
I
man.
would agree. I would
Dave
agree.
has spoken.
Though it did help me because I connected with Dave, who was able to correct me on some things that I hadn't examined in myself. So, like, if when used responsibly, it can get you in touch with people you would otherwise never have access to. Unfortunately, it gets you in touch with people that you would otherwise never have access to.
So it's that double-edged sword thing going on. I don't know. I think that there are really good and healthy discussions that can be had, but I think things like that get shoved out of the way for the spectacle of something. However, I don't think this is something that is like unique to social media. Like YouTube, Twitter, even Blue Sky now. You'll notice that the same thing is happening on the news. So, like, the Ken Ham Bill Nye debate, like we talked about earlier, that was, like, very much the appeal of that was the spectacle of it. Watching Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens debate that bishop and that other lady whose name escapes me. Like, that there's a spectacle to it. And so when those things kind of ran themselves out, we stopped seeing those debates on TV. Right?
Well,
So there was...
Yeah, we also see this in like media. Like I always hate how skeptics are treated in media because you'll watch a movie where somebody is skeptical of something, and they're oftentimes portrayed as a bad guy for being
Right.
skeptical. It'd be like some of the stuff. Like I watched this one show one time where it was about cryptozoology, and you had somebody who was literally there saying, well, could it be something else? And his co-host that it was with is like, oh, you just don't want it to exist, type of thing. It's like no, like he's saying,
Yeah.
he's giving you legitimate, like, hey, could it be something else? Like, why do we have to jump to Bigfoot or a werewolf or to whatever? Why couldn't it be something else? Like
Like
could
they're
be
just like
something else. Let's look
foo-fooing
into it.
the fun.
Yeah, and then in movies you'll see it where they're like always portrayed as just the guy who's ruining the fun.
You mean
It's like,
Doctor
no.
Doom?
Yeah.
That's just Doctor Doom, dude.
Yeah. And so it's like it gets aggravating because it's like skepticism, as long as it's doing correctly, and most of the time when you see it in shows, movies, whatever, it's being applied correctly. But they're still seen as the bad guy. It's like, no, these are people who are giving you honest, like, hey, let's look at it from a different point of view. And let's try to say if like maybe something else can't be the cause of this.
Jeff
And
Goldblum
yet
being
they're
the
just-
foil in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Well, I think with
Or-
social
It's
media,
aggravating.
I think social media is good at forming communities, and forming communities is something that you need to do if you're going to be a social species. But years ago, if you wanted to form a community, you had to leave the house, and now it's incredibly easy to form communities based on what turn out to be quite surface level interests that you share.
Mhm.
And I think maybe that's. But you see, I find that valuable because I don't want to leave the house, and I like sharing. Like I like bands and stuff, and I like talking to other people who like the bands. So am I part of the problem? I don't know. I'm not trying to hate on anyone.
Well, I think that a lot of things can be good. The same thing done in the wrong dose or in the wrong way can be both good and bad. So like
Like
forming
Christmas.
communities. Yeah, exactly. Forming communities around things that are your interests, around people who are similar to yourself, that's extremely valuable. Until the thing that you're interested in is racism or misogyny or transphobia,
Yeah.
and
When
but it's
when the
very
thing
easy to
you're
make that community.
interested in is specifically going out of your way to harm a whole other group of people, yeah.
Exactly, right.
But that was always an
Yeah,
issue before social media. But they had to leave the house.
Sure.
The clan people had to leave the house.
Right, and
Now
so
they
the
can stay
they
at
had,
home
they had
and
to
be
do it out in
bullshit.
public.
Yeah.
yeah, the ease of forming communities is a huge boon, but also it allows the speed of community forming to be a lot faster. So whereas
But
before,
yeah.
if you were going to
Speed, yeah.
make the clan or something, you couldn't go overnight from 0 to, lynching people. It took years of systemic racism. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go into America's racist
Well,
past, but
it also takes like a degree of subterfuge, right? You had to be like use dog whistles and keywords to be like, are you part of the group? Are you not part of the group? But you can apply the same thing to the gay community.
Controlled immigration.
The gay
Yeah.
community is exact same thing, where they would have to use like, oh, I've pierced specifically this part of my ear to indicate that I'm this da 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 da, and they'd have to use dog whistles and this subterfuge to be able to meet up with each other. And so like, but this is all social. These are all social stigmas, and there are things that we probably should have a social stigma about, and things that we shouldn't. And it's just a matter of, okay, but how do you identify which ones are and which ones aren't? And that's part of where your skepticism comes in.
Yeah. Being a fascist should
Yeah.
be bad. Actually, you should feel bad,
Yeah.
and people should dislike you for it.
I tell everybody all the time that it is always morally permissible to punch a Nazi.
I've
True.
decided that after watching the Canadian election, that there are way too many people in my specific region that are like Nazi is not like the dividing line. It's not enough to not vote for a fascist piece of shit. And so I am now going out of my way to obtain a purse and a brick for my own safety, of course.
Nice.
Self-defense.
I mean, like I said, it is always morally permissible to do.
Well,
it.
I think that there's like you can take hate speech laws and you can kind of like ramp those up or ramp them down, but that again, that's where your skepticism comes in. Why are you limiting speech in this way? And what is the justification and reasoning, and not just believing what somebody is telling you? Why are gay people bad? Why are fascists bad? It's really easy to explain why fucking fascists are bad. You're not going to be able to really convince like anybody who doesn't already have a chip on their shoulder about gay people.
Yeah.
Oh, Chesh, speaking about fascists and all that, I finally did get a debate with somebody.
Did you?
It's on TikTok. It's on TikTok, but it's going to happen tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Make sure you send me a link in DM so we can shout it out and I can review it later and talk about how bad you did.
Oh, of course.
Well, to know TikTok. I'm 50 years old.
We are at the 45-minute mark, so we should start wrapping it up. Do we have any other specific things about skepticism that we want to point out, or tips and tricks about dealing with it?
Yeah. I want to say that I want people to realize that if you are just now becoming an atheist, that skepticism and atheism are not synonymous. These are not two words that mean the same thing. And I get too many of this. And I'm guilty of it because like there was point in time whenever I became an atheist that I was not skeptic. And what ended up happening was I fell for the zeitgeist movement.
Yeah.
And the movie, and I watched it and I was like, this makes so much sense. Oh my God, look at my brain. I'm big brain now. And I went into an atheist, because this is before I started YouTube and all that, but I went into an atheist Facebook group, and I was coming up with my own idea of what the Bible was supposed to be based on the Zeitgeist movie. And I rightfully got clowned on. But at the time, I didn't feel it was rightfully, but I was like, why are people keep making fun of me? And then somebody finally said, I want you to go look up Horus. Just look up Horus, and you compare it to what the movie says Horus is. And so I did that. I went and I looked up Horus's background, completely different. And I was like, oh my God. And that's whenever I made it a point that when people make claims, I'm not going to just take it at face value. I'm going to, like, claims like that, I'm going to look it up. I'm going to make sure. And if I don't know, I definitely will say, I don't know. Let me look into it.
Yeah.
I'd say that the most useful tools are, one, being willing to accept I don't know as a valid position. Like, there's a lot of things, and I don't know most things. So I don't know is okay. Now, ideally, if you have the time, energy, and inclination, you would then go find out. But at the very least, accept that you don't know. And that kind of comes hand in hand with intellectual humility, realizing the limits of your own capabilities, and that kind of like what Barry's been saying about us being a social species, we have experts in things for a reason. So if I find myself disagreeing with every expert on a topic, I'm probably wrong. And so the right answer is not every expert disagrees with me. How can these idiots not see the truth? It's every expert disagrees with me. Golly, what am I missing? You know?
Right. Barry, what are you thinking?
What Jordan said there, that's it. Like, I question everything. Your basic thing should be, this is my best guess given the information I have at the moment. And if you're gonna, like, I know nothing about, let's say, nuclear engineering. So if I want to learn about that, what I should be thinking inside myself is, I want to engage with people who are part of a process that produces reliable results.
Yeah. Lumix in the
Something
chat
like that.
asked, is there meaning to life? And if we're still doing this show next year, April, that's going to be our April Fool's episode. Dave, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, as much as everybody hates Descartes and as terrible as his arguments are, read his meditations, because his actual ideas on breaking down your beliefs and reasons for why you believe things is a great first step into good skepticism.
Using
don't read the last
skepticism to deconstruct what you think you already believe is a really good starting spot. Because it helps you understand what you actually believe.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, I wish we touched more on Descartes.
Yeah. My last bit of advice is probably to be equally as skeptical across the board. And if you can claim something so easily, you should be able to demonstrate it so easily. If you're going to claim somebody's a liar, you should be able to show pretty straightforwardly that they are lying. Now, there are things that are a little bit more complicated and take a lot more work, but do not feel like you have to enter into every single argument and have an opinion on every single thing. It's okay to sit back and just watch and be like, you know what? Maybe I don't participate in this argument, but if you're gonna go out of your way and make yourself a part of the discussion and make yourself part of the fucking conversation, you need to be open to that you don't know everything about whatever topic you're talking about, guaranteed, and it's okay to change your mind. It's all right. It's chill. It's chill. All right. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know that in the kind of the discussions we have with believers and stuff like that, it sometimes feels we need to be an expert in everything.
Yeah.
But just be okay with saying I don't know. But let's look at what experts have said on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're gonna get out of here. I'll make sure Jordan's links are linked down below. We'll get Frustrated Atheist's link tomorrow, and I'll get that one linked down below as well once he has completed his debate over on TikTok, which I'm looking forward to watching now. That's going to be fun. I will be live over on my regular channel next week, and Sam is going to be joining us on Wednesday, I believe, but I will double check with him, and then it is the Volcano Show on the 17th. So, you guys have anything else going on you want to talk about? Jill?
No, not really.
Sure.
I'll be getting back to making videos in the summer because my uni year is almost over and I'll have some more free time.
Yahoo!
I want to ask Jordan, do you know what the flight speed of an unladen swallow is?
African or European swallow?
Hey!
Wait, I don't know that.
Oh man, I wish I had the thing open. Quick, do it. Wait, hold on. I got a thing for this. I got a thing for this. Wait. Okay, hold on. Do it again. Say I don't know again. Frustrated.
Jordan.
I don't know.
No,
me?
you
There you
were
go.
the one who said I don't know.
Oh, sorry. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
All right, anyway. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get out of here. This is a good one. I appreciate everybody for showing up. We will see you same bat time, same bat place, the first Saturday of every month for our philosophy show. I don't know what we're going to be discussing next time, but we might actually be at the point where we're ready to get into actual argumentation and rhetoric. And then from there, we'll get into fallacies. And then once we're done with fallacies and argumentation, we're going to get into like more obscure or like maybe start talking about specific philosophers. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get the hell on out of here. And we will see you next time. Say goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Bye. You've probably had a question that you have thought about throughout your entire life, whether it be like, where am I going in life? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? That is a philosophical question, regardless if you're just wanting to know what kind of job you're going to do or whatever. It's still a philosophical question.
I'd say life is a choose your own adventure book. And what philosophy does is it does that thing where you say, you know, you can go to page 20 if this happens, or go to page 80 if this happens. And on page 80, it just says you die. You know, when you're playing those games and you just skip that bit and you don't go to page 80, you decide to go to page 20 after all. That's what philosophy can do for you.
One key trait about philosophy is that there's like unresolved arguments all the time that never can come to a consensus or agreement. It's always disagreements constantly, but that's actually part of a trick that's actually really good.
A little bit of philosophy makes you Deepak Chopra. Studying philosophy makes you an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But the question here, Dave, is, you know, what do you mean by a little?